Hi and welcome to Different Leaf, a show for new and experienced cannabis consumers. I'm Britt Smith. This episode, we're going to hear the inspirational story of how one man's traumatic accident led him to develop an accessibility-focused business model within the newly blossoming hemp industry. Today's guest is Bradford Beckermann, founder and CEO of Hennepen's Hemp, which is grown and processed in Colorado into super high-quality CBD and minor cannabinoid products and sold across the nation online and at farmers markets in Bradford's home state of New York. More than a decade ago, Bradford was involved in a near-fatal car accident that left him with a traumatic brain injury and a diagnosis of epilepsy. He hated being reliant on pharmaceutical drugs, so Bradford began his journey to find natural methods of healing, which eventually led him to cannabis and CBD. In the very beginning, Bradford said that he wanted Hennepen's Hemp to be a place of inclusivity and opportunity. So early on, Hennepen's formed a partnership with the ARC program, the nation's largest community-based organization advocating for and with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And now, adults with disabilities comprise a majority of Hennepen's staff. Bradford said he's honored to create employment opportunities for a generation of adults with disabilities and special needs who are bringing hard work ethics, charisma, and energy to Hennepen's Hemp. We'll be right back with Bradford after this break. What kind of dog is she?
She's a miniature Australian Shepherd.
So gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, she is beautiful. That's the most common word people say about her. So that's a beautiful dog.
How old is she?
She's 8.
Oh, so you've had her a while?
Well, I've known her whole life, but it's part of my story, the Hennepen story. She's from the farm.
Oh, really?
Yes. She's one of the farming. It's a family. And so there's 2 brothers, a sister, a mom, all in different houses on the farm. She's one of the family's former dogs. And long story short, I just have to start with this. Is just fun. By the way, good morning.
Yeah, I do have a list of questions, but I kind of like where this is going. Please continue.
So long story short, I've never had a dog before, but I've always loved dogs. That's me. One of the farmers and his wife, this is their first dog, kind of the wife's dog, before they had kids. Then they've had 2 kids, 4 other dogs. Roxy didn't get along with the puppy that replaced her sister. Makes sense. Well, she became an outside dog at that time. She had been an inside dog. She became an outside dog. And she was also not happy. She would hide up in their bed and wouldn't come downstairs underneath it. Anyhow, I'm in the yard one day at their place, and the dog just sits on my foot and looks up at me. And like, I'm a big sucker, oh my God, what's up with you? And, all the outside dogs bark at you. It's a farm. Like,
That's what they do. That's why they're there.
yeah. So, like, she's a filthy dog, too. Filthy. They're all filthy dogs, outside live full-time dogs. I never thought really much of this dogs or any of the dogs outside. There's a pit bull. There's all these different dogs. I'm like, whatever. It's looking at me like just loving me. And I kind of loved her back. I was like, oh, hi, Roxy. How you doing? And the farmer comes out and he's like, I think she wants to hang out with you. I was like, well, can you clean her up? So he took her in the house, cleaned her up, gave her to me. You can take her back to your house. Yeah, and so I showered her up. I'd never taken care of a dog before, but I had to go sell hemp anyway. So it's like 4 hours to go to Denver and Boulder and like civilization. He's like, yeah, take the dog with you. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you'll see. It'll be good. I was like, all right, okay. So I took the dog with me. Long story short, I've never sold more hemp in my life. And so I came back with like a bunch of money and really like no hemp. And the farmer was just like, see, I told you, deal dog. That's the deal dog.
Yeah, everybody's a sucker for a sweet pup.
Yep. So I'm like, all right. So she stayed at my house, stayed with me for the trip. And then, I asked if I could bring her back with me to New York. This is like more than a year ago, probably a year and a half ago. Me and the dog had a bond. So the farm truck comes through here to do deliveries for here in Maine and whatever, takes the dog back with him. This is like 6 weeks after, a month after. It's, we're co-parenting. The farm has deliveries without me. And okay. So the dog didn't do well. The dog shook in the car for like 13 hours crying. And I'm not going to confirm or deny that I did much better for any longer or shorter than that period of time. But like, it wasn't good. I didn't like it. I showed back up at the farm like a month after that. I came with all the money and I was just like, can I have the dog? And they're like, what do you mean? Like full time? Yeah.
That's your buddy.
And I go, here's the deal. You don't know this, but I have epilepsy. So they know this. So I said, look, I'll go back to New York. I'll get the doctor recommendation letter for my epilepsy. I have a trainer who does service dogs as like a professional dude who does the things. And it's like a $60,000 kind of situation to get a fully registered, federally registered service dog for epilepsy or seeing eye dog or whatever it is. So over the course of a year, it's a 720-hour training.
Oh my gosh.
The dog and the dude 720 hours together doing a training. So he's a friend of mine. He lives in Rhode Island. So like I go out there for a week, stay, and just work. So Roxy became this federally registered service dog, which to me, the patient. And then I also made her the company mascot. I changed her last name, so her name is Roxy Hennepens for legal reasons. She's my service dog and the company mascot.
That is the most heartwarming dog owner story I've ever heard. Dogs are amazing.
She's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
All right, so let's dive into why you got into hemp and cannabis in the first place. So, unfortunately, you're involved in a bad car accident and were left with traumatic brain injury and epilepsy. So, how did cannabis tie into that incident?
Because of cannabis, I haven't had a seizure in 17 years, but I had seizures for 3.5 years. Long story short, I got hit by a car, brain surgery, lung surgery, hip surgery, knee surgery, foot surgery, a 2-week medically induced coma. And here I am with epilepsy because I had 5-gram tonic-clonic seizures after that. And so that's the definition of a person with epilepsy is a human who had 5-gram tonic-clonic seizures is an epileptic. You have epilepsy for your life. So I weaned off 17 medications because I was hit by a car. It was an accident in Delray Beach, Florida, a 92-year-old lady. Not fun. But I got, over 3.5 years and 17 drugs and 22 treating physicians. I got through all my stuff and I went to India. I weaned off all the drugs against the doctor's orders.
You stopped all the drugs
Oh, yeah.
and just went to India?
Yeah, yeah.
What was the plan?
And I have an Indian friend, and he's in southern India. I knew him from nightclub business before my accident in Florida. And so Indian guy, he wanted to go home. He goes home and tells me the best time to go to India all the time is like December 15th to January 15th. You want to get Christmas in and New Year's in, the best time to be in India. So I go to India, I stay at his parents' house in Madras for 10 days. But yeah, I told him I was on a healing mission. So they told me about this guy, Dr. Isaac Mathai, who still is, this top Ayurvedic healer. And he's in the Whitefield section of Bangalore, India. And his place is called Soukya, Soukya. Anyway, 30 acres of organic food. His wife's in charge of that. She's a nutritionist, deals all the vegan food there. But like he's this top Ayurvedic doctor, who's from a lineage of, Ayurvedic doctors.
What is Ayurvedic? What does that mean?
Basically indigenous medicine where you take herbs, plants, tree barks, roots, and make medicine from it. It's not like basically synthesizing all the real stuff and turning it into white powder, making it a pill. This is not that. I knew I needed to do this. So I became vegan during that time. I'm not vegan right now. I was vegan from 02 to 06. I just knew intuitively I needed to cleanse my body, medically induced coma, all this kind of stuff, and seizures, epilepsy. And so anyway, so I saw the Ayurvedic doctor and I told him, I was like, look, I weaned off, I have my list of medicines. I'm like, I weaned off these 17 drugs. Here are my 22 treating doctors. I didn't listen to any of them, meaning I weaned off all the drugs, but I listened to the neurologist. I did it over 6 months so I wouldn't have a seizure. And I'm here. What do you got for me? I don't want to take the Western drug. What's up? He gave me a regime of tree barks, herbs, and roots. And he said, get indica marijuana when you get back to the United States and use it heavily. I was like, my man, score.
What year was this?
05.
So it wasn't available in dispensaries. Like you were just planning to like come back and find a plug.
I was all right.
I'm thinking like, how do you know it's indica? It's the illicit market. How do you know?
It's all illicit market. I didn't give a shit. The legacy market is how this whole thing started everything. And everybody who's in the legal market today had to have had some experience or they would have never gotten there. You know what I mean?
But when you came back from India,
I went to India for a month, Thailand for a month, and then Argentina for a month. India was for healing. Thailand, because it was right next door to it. And everyone's like, if you're going to go to India, you got to go to Thailand. So I did Thailand too. Thailand was cool. Argentina, I just wanted to go to Argentina. But I got a call when I was in Argentina. I hadn't worked in 4 years, injuries. And I got this, not a call, this email from New York City from this restaurant, Barney Greengrass. It's kind of a famous place on the Upper West Side. It's smoked fish. You ever heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's on the West Side. It's a smoked fish. It's been on Law and Order, all these TV shows. It's been there for 125 years, something like that. It's famous. Wallpapers from the 30s on the walls, same stuff. Really good food. So they needed a general manager. Like, I got reached out. I got recommended by someone, whatever. I hadn't worked in years. I was in Argentina healing, so I took the job. I came back to the United States. And during that time, I only worked there for 9 months. I was supposed to work there like ongoing, but I started selling Bradford tonic out of there, which was a drink that I made for myself during my healing time. Irish moss and roots.
Irish moss and roots?
Yeah.
How did you make it? What did you do to it?
It's a crazy process. Jamaican thing, it's a Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean kind of thing.
So you started with your first company, your first business here was that tonic.
Yeah. I was selling it out of Barney Greengrass with permission from him. Anyway, I didn't get to do what I was supposed to do there. So I told Gary, thanks very much. But I gave him plenty of notice. I'm going to resign. So I went to Miami and started a beverage company called Bradford Tonic, which I then got into Whole Foods and went coast to coast with Whole Foods and sold drinks nationwide and went to Jamaica and did different stuff. And that's what I did after the accident. 4 years of healing, then India, Thailand, Argentina, and Bradford Tonic from 2006 to 2012.
It was in 2014 that Hennepen's launched.
2014, I went to Colorado on a different business. So that's how I got out there and learned about CBD. I never really heard of CBD before. I smoked plenty of indica marijuana from 05 to 14, had no seizures.
Doctor's orders.
I'm healed. So then, I got out there to Colorado and this business wasn't working out. I'm now in lawsuits, suing the guy. It's like a disaster scene. So I wound up, doing butane hash oil and learning the business out there.
It was already legal out there at that point. Like the dispensaries were up.
Yeah. So I worked in the industry out there. And I had 75 marijuana plants in my house because of my epilepsy, which I was growing my own marijuana for medical use. But I also was in the industry working and learning how to do it from industry professionals because I never did that as a business before.
Why did you want to move over to hemp? What was it about CBD that was so appealing to you?
I didn't know what CBD was until 2014, basically. And in 2014, I got out to Colorado and I learned CBD. And CBD is really the cannabinoid that really helps me and people with epilepsy not seize. So it has this relaxing kind of quality. It's an anti-anxiety and it's an anti-inflammation and it's all these different things. So I heard about the potential of it and started getting, different CBD flowers and things. And it was really kind of like revolutionary there at the time. I wound up meeting this farming family that I got the dog from, who they're old school cannabis people too. So they're heirloom strains and all this kind of stuff. And they had a proprietary cultivar, which is the 0.3 or less THC, just like the Charlotte's Web kind of story, but in a different form, meaning it's one group had a proprietary cultivar. Both groups did. Stanley Brothers do. And my people do. In this case, I'm like the Charlotte kind of person. My epilepsy hadn't seized really since 05 from marijuana.
Right. So this is the adult version of Charlotte Figge's story, really.
Right. Basically, yeah.
So now you focus on one single strain. Why did you choose to just go with the one?
It's the farming partner. So they have this one proprietary cultivar that it's scientifically better than other cultivars. It has more minor cannabinoids than others do. Like our certificate of analysis on our website shows, I think 8 or 9 minor cannabinoids beyond the CBD. Most companies show 1 to 3 minor cannabinoids. And that's just what testing shows. This is for everybody in the industry. That's only what it shows now. The testing equipment's not really on that level fully yet.
It can't sense every single cannabinoid yet.
It's going to show a lot more.
So now you've started up this company, Hennepen's, but you're moving between New York and Colorado. And the last time we talked a few days ago, you had just done a 20-something hour trip between the two states. And you're I'm so tired.